today, and special thanks to Andrew Campbell, who's a long friend of Call, and obviously TextHelp do some great products, but they were doing well, one that's new to me anyway, and that's OrbitNote, and it's also great to have Gustavo on as well. So I'll just hand over to you, and you can tell us all about OrbitNote and how to make PDFs accessible. Okay, thanks.
Again, thanks, Craig, and again, thanks for having us on. I'm come on here every year and talk about all things TextHelp. As was mentioned at the start, I've had a chest infection for 3 weeks, so thankfully today I can hand over to Gustavo, who's our product manager for OrbitNote, knows a bit more about it than I do. So just a very quick introduction on who TextHelp are. I'm doing like 30 seconds, then I'm handing over to him to talk about the product today. So TextHelp, company based in Northern Ireland. I'm sure a lot of you will be aware of us already. We have 40 million users worldwide, and we're inclusion and accessibility experts. A lot of customers in Scotland. So if you're from any of the, so let's put on the slideshow here. Any of the following councils, you'll be using our software already. So a lot of you will know Read and Write, I'm sure. So Aberdeenshire, City, Highland, Midlothian, Stirling, South Ayrshire, South Lanarkshire, all using it already. And some of you will be using OrbitNote there already as well. I know Midlothian is something that they use right across their authority. So say a few different products we have at TextHelp. So Read and Write, OrbitNote, so Gustavo's going to talk about today, Equatio and Fluency Tutor. So Read and Write's kind of been the most popular one in Scotland over the last few years. All those authorities I mentioned so far have been using it. And Equatio is certainly another one that's growing as well. So that's I'm really just wanting to introduce the company, say who we are, because a lot of you in Scotland know me already. Please get in touch if you want any trials or pilots set up, or if you want me to do any demonstrations. But today I'm delighted to welcome Gustavo along, who's much more in tune with OrbitNote and probably better looking as well. We always tell him in our office at TextHelp, a good-looking South American man to present today. So, Gustavo, I'm going to hand over to you to talk about all things OrbitNote.
All right, Andrew, thank you very much. All right, let's see. Now it's my turn to have a little fight with Microsoft Teams. Let's see if this goes well. So you should see my slides. Yeah.
Yeah,
all good.
Nice and clear. Great.
Brilliant. Thank you. I promise it's 3 slides, so don't worry. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of information here. Just a super quick introduction. Already Andrew and Craig were very nice introducing me there. So we're going to talk about OrbitNote, and I just wanted to start briefly by having a quick well, if you want to make any comments, you're welcome. That would be wonderful. But many times we start the session wondering why are we talking about PDFs, and many times we don't realize how often we actually deal with PDFs, not just teachers, but also students. And if you start thinking about it, where do you actually encounter PDFs in your day-to-day and also your students, you quickly come to the conclusion that they are pretty much everywhere. If we're thinking about worksheets, whether new that we're just buying from a publisher or somewhere where we can download for resources, or old resources that when we have scanned because they were wonderful PDFs or papers that we used back in the classroom, and now we want to have a digital version of that, or as well reading material that again has been scanned from books, or it's simply already made available digitally and they are published in PDFs. And I could go on with so many examples. If students are doing their research at home on the web, it's very, very likely that they will open a lot or find a lot of information on PDFs, magazines, research papers. And then as well, of course, we have the exams, which is a very important topic. They're all officially in PDFs. And if we want to practice for the mocks, or if we want to practice with past papers, again, we're dealing with PDFs. So they're pretty much everywhere. And as Andrew mentioned earlier on, we have done a very good job supporting students pretty much everywhere where the learning happens, across the web, in Google Docs, in Word, in case you're using Microsoft Office, and pretty much everywhere where you can actually do any sort of work, also across different platforms like Macs and Chrome OS. But we had a little gap there, which PDFs. We had a tool that was called the TextHelp PDF Reader, but we were sure that we could do better. So we have really revamped that tool, and that's what we have now, which is OrbitNote. So OrbitNote is that toolbar that I'm going to show you in a few seconds there, that will always sit on top of any PDF that you or your students are working on. And our idea is to provide students and teachers, especially students, obviously, with a consistent experience wherever they are working. So if they're working on the web, if they're working on a document, what they will see is a toolbar like this that you see on the top of my screen. That's Read and Write, the tool that Andrew mentioned that a lot of students are already using in Scotland. And if you have a look at OrbitNote, it's very similar. So for students, the experience is very, very good, because they don't really know that they are dealing with a different tool. For them, it's the same set of tools that are supporting them to access some content in many different places where they're working on a computer or a device. So this is pretty much like an extension of what we're doing to cover that support. But on top of that, we have added a lot of things to make PDFs more actionable, because as we know in PDFs, it's not just about reading. We also want to write content, create content, and maybe even collaborate with other peers or our teachers. So I'll show you that, and at the end as well, show you quickly how this is taken into an exams environment. And because this is a web app in a browser, for us, that exams environment would be a Chromebook device. If you're working on laptops that are using Windows, you can use Read and Write for Windows, which is a solution that we've had for a while already. But for those of you that are now using Chromebooks, you might be probably very aware that there's a challenge now about how we can secure the devices and actually provide students with all the reading and writing supports, and at the same time give them a tool that actually represents their normal way of working. All of that is going to be possible with OrbitNote for exams, which I'll show at the end. So that's a quick introduction about why we're talking about PDFs and what OrbitNote is. So let me open a tab here. Well, what I will do actually is click on that icon. If you have, I know it's very small, but on my extensions toolbar, I have a little icon there that is OrbitNote. When I click there, it launches my dashboard, which is this. So from here, I can drag and drop PDFs here or open them from my computer, or I can open them from my Google Drive. If I am a Microsoft user, instead of having Google Drive here, I would have OneDrive. And from here as well, I can use a split and merge tool that comes with OrbitNotes. And as well, I can configure OrbitNote so it becomes my default toolbox. So in case I open a PDF from the web, it will automatically open with with OrbitNote. Same thing from OneDrive or Google Drive. So this is just one way that I have to open a PDF. So I'm going to open a PDF from my Google Drive, which is, as you can see, connected to OrbitNote already, and it will launch OrbitNote here. So there you go. That's the toolbar that I was showing earlier on in my slides, and there's the PDF. So I could right away start using all these wonderful tools, especially if I am familiarized with Read and Write. But if I want to start selecting words to use a dictionary or a text-to-speech or any of those reading and writing supports that I have available for me, I quickly noticed that this PDF actually is not allowing me to do anything. So first barrier for the learner is that about 1 out of 4 PDFs that you find everywhere, including publishers that actually publish stuff for education, those PDFs will be inaccessible. And that is probably the worst thing that we can do to a student, because they cannot do absolutely anything with this document. It's probably worse than actually having a paper, because I cannot even highlight concepts that I'm interested in. It's pretty complicated. It's a huge barrier. And we all know, or many of you might know, that there is a tool out there that many of us already have been using for a while, which is called OCR. So I can run an OCR process, which will actually recognize the characters and make them available for me. However, not too many students know what OCR is. They don't know where to find it. It's a very technical definition, and very few are actually aware that there are concepts such as inaccessible PDFs, running this thing that is going to make it available, and it's not practical. So we made sure that this tool was designed with students in mind. So when I open this PDF, what I see is this blue box on the top right-hand side, and it's prompting me to actually scan the document. First of all, we have removed the technicality of the OCR, and we are calling it simply scan text. We couldn't find any text. Do you want to scan for text? Yes, please, let's scan it. I can select the language. We support several languages, and then scan it. So it takes me a couple of clicks, no technicalities, and right away that document is available for me and is fully accessible now. This is replacing my copy in my Google Drive, and that definitely reduces confusions when you have copies of copies of copies. This is my original now. And now I have unlocked pretty much all the power of this toolbar, and I can use all of these features to actually work on my PDF. So definitely, we don't have time to go through the whole toolbar. I would love to show you all the features that OrbitNote has to offer, but let's have a look at just the concept of the things that you can do now that this document is accessible. So, of course, first of all, what I can do is use a text-to-speech. You won't be able to listen or to hear the voice speaking because of my headset, but we have Scottish voices there, and all I have to do is click somewhere in the text. And if you're familiar with Read and Write, you are familiar with that double highlighting, which is great for tracking text. It really helps you to focus. So it is really fantastic, even just for text-to-speech. Is one of the most used functions in that toolbar. And then in this particular exercise, which I like a lot, I have to work on vocabulary, and there are a lot of words there that could be new for me. So dictionaries would be very handy. So for example, if I select delicate, I can open a dictionary here, which will give me a lot of definitions. Of course, all of them, I can read them aloud. I can also open a picture dictionary, which will give me a better visual cue of the definition of the word if I'm more visual. I can even open a translator that, in my case, I have it to Spanish. So very quickly now, I can just flip through words, and it's going to update all those windows and give me a lot of information to work on my PDF. Imagine what's the alternative to this. If you have a non-alternative not accessible PDF, most likely, probably 90% of the students will just give up and probably not really push themselves to actually do their best with this exercise because it's challenging. And a few others will start probably researching, opening new tabs, going to Google, starting to find all this information in different websites. And we know that that's going to take a lot of time. It's not really motivating. Most importantly, you completely lose your focus, and most likely you end up watching the latest cool YouTube video out there. So this really provides them with focus and all the support they need on screen. Just a few more examples here that are accessibility related. Of course, we can have the same screen mask that we have in Read and Write. I can change colors, the size of a beam. It's highly customizable, and I can also use a screenshot reader. So in case there was something left in this document that was not accessible, for example, a word inside an image that was a little bit tricky for the scan text function, I can always run a mini OCR process in a particular section or part of that PDF and make it available for text-to-speech. So that kind of covers a few of the things that I have here in the first part of the toolbar. Although I really want to show you this one because I really like it, again, especially in this context where a few words might be new for me. And as a teacher, I maybe want to encourage students to create their own word bank, or I want to create my own word bank of those new words that I'm struggling with. So I could highlight a few of these new vocabulary words that I liked. That doesn't matter the color, I can use whatever I fancy. And when I'm good to go, there's a very good feature here that's called vocabulary. If I click there, what OrbitNote is going to do, it's going to open a new document. If I'm a Google user, it's going to open a Google Doc. If I'm a Microsoft user, it's going to open a Word Online doc. And it's going to collect all those words, and it's going to put them in this table where I have the words, the meaning, the symbols, and notes that I can actually customize, personalize there. This is amazing. Imagine how long this would take to do by hand, if you could say it like that. and it's all done with one click. And now this document is fully editable, is mine, and I can do as much as I want with that. So it really adds so many layers of potential for the students to access that content. So that's in terms of what I can do to access the content, but the support doesn't finish there. And we thought it was very important to continue supporting the students when they were actually writing on the PDF. So if I want to complete this exercise here and I want to start filling the boxes, I will go to this T, which is a text box, and put it somewhere where I want to write. And the first thing that I hope you notice here is that those reading and writing supports are still there. We have text to speech, so I can listen to what I am typing. I have prediction, which will suggest certain words as I write. That's, I think, the second most used tool that we have in Read and Write and OrbitNote. I can also dictate my answers, and I can also change the size of the font and change the color. So it's massively important that we don't leave the student abandoned at some stage with partial supports. Wherever they're working on the web, in documents, Google, Microsoft, and now PDFs, they have supports when they're reading and when they're writing. So let's see, big, synonym, it's huge. And as I start typing, I can see, well, that was a very short word. But if I were, let's move that up there. If I was typing something a little bit more complex, like difficult, for example, and I turn the prediction on, see how I get a list of words. And if I hover the mouse over, I can hear the definitions. So that is fantastic as well if I'm struggling with my writing, my spelling, or have for some sort of visual impairment there. So it's as easy as that to type your answers. So, Andrew, sorry, I'm not checking if there are any questions, but if you can have a look and let me know, because I see the icon there of Microsoft Teams blinking.
That's all good. Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on.
Cool, thank you. So that's a text. And then I have a lot of annotation tools here that I can use just as in a very natural way as I would use them if I was working on paper and pen. So for example, I could use my freehand drawing tool to strike through the words that I already used, or I could use any of these shapes. And that's just very intuitive. Sometimes it feels a bit silly to demo that because it's like using paint in the old days, but that's what we want, that this is a very intuitive, this becomes a very intuitive tool to use for students. I can include comments as well. So for example, if I highlight a section of the text, this pink bubble will appear on the side of my PDF. If I click there, I can add comments. I can also attach images, attach links. Again, prediction is here, dictation is here, text-to-speech is here. Everywhere you go, we're always going to offer those supports there. And I can also record voice notes. So that could be just for me, because I'm doing some study and research from this document, and I just like to leave voice notes there. It's more engaging, more fun, or actually I struggle with writing. And it's also great as well to create more engagement when teachers are creating an assignment and they want to leave a voice instruction on the PDF instead of something written. So it opens a world of possibilities as well for communication and collaboration between teachers and students and peers. And so we have a few more, like you can insert images here, and you can also create your own signatures. And here, as you can see, if you are Google users, you can, with one click, create this as a material in Google Classroom or create that as an assignment in Google Classroom. So we don't have time to show that, but that's part of that workflow that was missing in the digital world. You have a worksheet, you have a few pages that you want to share with your students. How can you do that with a couple of clicks while giving them a tool that will fully support them, not just throw a PDF at them, but really go with them hand by hand through the whole process. So it's fully integrated with Google Classroom as well. And I'll show you just the last bit, which is the exams part that I have here. And this is something we're very excited about. This is still under development, but we're going to have already a very, very good working version for December 1st. So if any of you have that challenge at the moment that you want to test a tool that will allow you to provide access arrangements to students in exams, we will be more than happy to give you a copy of this so you can trial it out in internal exams, maybe in January, February, March, so you're ready to have something more consistent by the time that the external exams arrive. So
really excited, Gustavo, that we can show this one at last. I think
yeah,
Paul and the guys at Call Scotland have been asking me about this. Must be, Paul, about 7 or 8 years. But this has been discussed, so we're finally hearing something we're very excited about.
Well, that'd be
yeah,
great.
I know.
And I mean, just to say, I was just about to type in yes. As soon as you've got something to show, then if you could, organize a webinar, or if you've got difficulty with that, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Because like yesterday, I was at a conference in Glasgow and speaking to people in Aberdeen and Highland and Western Bartonshire today, and everybody is looking for something that means that they can use their Chromebooks for examinations. So as soon as you've got something to show us, let us know,
Well,
and we'll spread the word.
Gustavo does now. He's going to give you a bit of a taster for it, so it should be ready to go very soon. But this is the first viewing of it anyway. So go ahead, Gustavo.
Yeah, it's actually the first time that we show it, and it's already working. We're just in final QA, as we call it, just doing some quality checks. But after 1st December, we're more than happy to share it with any of you interested. And it would be great to organize a webinar and go into more detail into a whole setup, the concept behind how it works, how we ensure that the integrity of exam is protected, and all of those details that I'm sure you're interested in. But basically, in a nutshell, we use kiosk mode, and the Chromebooks are launched automatically in kiosk mode, pointing to OrbitNote for exams, which is what I'm showing you there now. The nice part of this is that exams officers or whoever is responsible for creating the exam will create an assignment in Google Classroom. So obviously, if you're using Chromebook devices, it's because you are working with the Google environment and you should be familiarized with Google Classroom. So it's part of the process that schools already have in place. Just create an assignment in Google Classroom, include there your students, and then students will open their Chromebooks, click on the assignment that they have there, which is in this case the N5 examination. And what you will see is what I'm showing on screen, which is a Chromebook device fully locked. You cannot do anything because that's a concept of kiosk mode. You cannot, there are no tabs, there's no arrows to click forward or back or open something that might be forbidden. So what I have on screen are simply these two tabs which contain two papers. We made sure that we kept it like that to maximize the reading area in a small Chromebook device. We thought about doing split screens, but then when we were running tests and we were asking for feedback from teachers and students, we never thought about something so basic, which is if you divide that screen in a Chromebook, it's going to be very hard to read. And if you're already struggling with reading the screen for some visual impairments, or you have anxiety or stress, that's just going to make things worse. So the solution was just make it very simple to flip between papers. And then in my first one, which is the one that contains all the reading material, I'll be able to use all the SQA approved tools there, text-to-speech, screenshot reader, screen mask, highlighters, and I'll just go ahead and use it. The beauty about this is that it's the normal way of working of the student already. They've been using OrbitNote by now, hopefully for months, using PDFs, and that toolbar is exactly what they are using in their day-to-day. So it's not just a normal way of working to tick the box because the tools are called the same. It's actually the same tool, which really delivers the best experience for the most fair experience for the student. And when I go to a test paper, I have the same reading supports, but I also have this T that will allow me to complete my answers on the paper, which again is a huge improvement, because if you have another word processor, there are challenges there. One is that you have to be changing from one tab to the other. If you're splitting screens, it's going to be all too small. And most importantly, you can make mistakes like referencing, which at the end of the day can be very painful and not necessarily fair. So here I can type my answers. I know that in Scotland you use fillable PDFs, and that's something, don't worry, that is clearly as a priority in the roadmap, and we will have it 100% for sure in our final product. At the moment, you can already type your answers, listen to your answers, use dictation if it's allowed, and just go ahead and complete your examination here. And when it's done, you turn it in, the Chromebook is locked, and you just walk away, and the teacher can go back to the classroom that was created in Google Classroom, see the answers and print them out. So that's already working ahead. And yeah, I'm super excited about this, Andrew. And if there's an interest for a webinar and more detail about this, please let us know, because we would love to have many of you trying these in internal exams to make sure that the final solution is exactly what you need, if there's anything that needs a little bit of improvement there. And I know we're running out of time, so I was just going to leave you with one slide that contained a URL here, text.help/OrbitWakelet. And that's going to take you to a Wakelet, which is basically some sort of blog with a few videos. If you are interested in exploring OrbitNote, there's a video that it's called Getting Started. There's one for Google users. There's one for Microsoft users. If you want to know where to start, downloading the extension, how do I log in, how do I open a PDF from the web, from my drive, that's the video that you should go to. I think it's 3.5 minutes long, something like that. So that's a great starting point. And obviously you have Andrew and myself for any questions, for anything that you need. That's my email. Don't hesitate to drop me a line, please, if you have any questions or if there's anything I can help with. And that's me, Andrew and Craig. I think
Thanks,
we're
Gustavo.
right on time.
That was really interesting. Excellent. Thanks, Andrew, too. Actually, all those issues you outlined at the start, Gustavo, Paul and I were just talking about them this morning, and we actually had a meeting with a teacher this morning as well, who's looking for similar kind of solutions. So that's really good. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop your mic on or just post them into the text box below. If anything you want to ask Gustavo or Andrew about OrbitNote, or Paul, if there's anything you'd like to add.
Just excellent. As I say, yesterday I was speaking to Charlie Love from Aberdeen, and they of course have got Chromebooks everywhere and read and write, and textile products. We were basically agreeing that we should just do it. And he was saying, let's just find somebody to organize the Google admin console, do it with kiosk mode. So what I'd really like to do is take up, Charlie Love's suggestion in conjunction with and encourage you guys to speak to him to try and find some Aberdeen city schools and just see if they can use it for their upcoming prelim internal assessment, because it's the only way to. I'm sure that you'll find some schools that are willing to do that.
I would have thought so. Yeah, it's certainly something we'll be doing. And I know in Midlothian they're already using OrbitNotes widely. The uses stats for OrbitNote are through the roof in Midlothian at the moment. So they'll be one we'll be looking to transition into the exam side of things as well. And we'll have a look. You'd mentioned in the chat, Paul, about SQA. That's something we'll check out with them. Hopefully that will all be okay.
Yeah, well, they said to me informally, well, not even informally, they said to me by email that they would change the rules around internet to allow access to the internet for things like speech to text. And so then at the last meeting I had with them, they clarified it. They said, This is internet access so that you can get the digital assessments on the device. And they said, but not during the assessment. And I said, well, that's just nonsense, because the whole point of having internet access is, I mean, it's an exam, for goodness sake. It needs to save every time you make a change. So that if your device dies, then you know that it's saved in Google Classroom. So I think part of the reluctance on the part of SQA is that they want to see something that will work. And so hence, Charlie Love and I spoke to Ailey Mackay as well in Midlothian yesterday. And so, I just think if we could get some pilots to test this, then that's kind of the job done. I've got another meeting with SQA next week, so I will bring them up to speed with this new development.
If they want us to come and show them how it works or whatever, or get to run a few pilots, we can certainly do that as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Excellent.
Thanks.
Fantastic.
Just to finish off, there's a couple of comments and a question. Sean's asking, what's the price of OrbitNote?
That's more of an Andrew question.
not to be. That's one that depends really on if you're getting it for as a single, or you're getting it for as one school or as part of your authority. I'm not being evasive on that one, but Sean, if you just drop me an email on that, I can fill you in what the best options are around that. Say it depends what way you're kind of getting it. I think that's the answer on that one.
I like the model that you have with the Google Chrome extension, that teachers get it free.
Yeah. That, and then within OrbitNote, there's the reason there's certain difference. So if you have read and write, you get certain parts of OrbitNote, but then there's a premium side of it as well that gets you the other tools around, a lot less on the accessibility side, more on the kind of annotating and splitting and merge and things like that. So just really depends what exactly you need and what you're after, Sean, regarding price. So I'm really trying not to come across as evasive on that one, but just give us a shout and we can tailor that. So let's see another one from Mr. Ferguson saying, looks like a fantastic resource. Great, thank you. Get the head around it, works and again, yeah. So there's lots of training opportunities as well around all of our tools. So onto YouTube, we do webinars all the time on how to use these things. So we never really send out products and leave people to their own devices to learn how to use them. We give up as many opportunities as we can to make sure that tools are being used well. So you just keep an eye out for those on our website. I guess all the questions, isn't it? Any more?
Can't hear you, Greg, for some reason.
Craig, I
see
think
your mouth moving,
microphone's muted.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to say thanks, Gustavo, for such a great overview of OrbitNote, and thanks, Andrew, as well. And thanks to everyone for attending today. And we'll get Robert will send the recording out to everyone in the next couple of days or so. So thanks again. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Over the media.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.